Welcome, Lund loyalists, to John Lund Unleashed. Those watching on YouTube, on the John Lund Unleashed and Bay Area Sports Collective channels. Viewers on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and Lundos listening to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. John Lund Unleashed, brought to you by Reapel Sports Medicine. Got pain? Check out our revolutionary stem cell treatments. And guys, if low T is bringing you down, Reapel Sports Medicine can put you back in the game. Now all juiced up and ready to go, here's Johnny.
Yes, what's happening? My last day on the road. Thanks for joining us on a Tuesday edition of the show, John Lund Unleashed. On YouTube, John Lund Unleashed. Please make sure that you subscribe. Hit that like button, please, so the algorithm can find us and say, hey, this isn't half bad. Bay Area Sports Collective, that's where we are as well. Make sure you hit up a subscribe there. Tom Tolbert is there. Tommy will be doing postgame. I don't know if, I just texted somebody. I don't know if Tommy's feeling better. He was sick for Game 7 and didn't go to Houston, so he may not have traveled to Minnesota. If not, he'll be doing a quick post-game, but they're there for the first two, so Tommy will be doing a post-game show regardless after Game 1 tonight, so make sure that you tune in to the Tom Tolbert Show on the Bay Area Sports Collective. Also, of course, Polished Particles, Polymax Particles, and Creative Tony. They will be on after me this morning as well. So welcome to a Tuesday edition of the show. Again, make sure that you're subscribing on YouTube, John Lund Unleashed, and the Bay Area Sports Collective. You're watching this morning on X. Thank you so much. If you'd migrate over here, that'd be great. At John Lund Radio, you're watching there. You're watching on Twitch as well. LinkedIn, Facebook, any platform that you're watching on. Thank you. We have a ton to cover today for episode 134. I have one last thing, or Jeremiah Green has one last thing on Dillon Brooks. Then we'll get into all of the preview of the Minnesota Timberwolves series. I actually feel good about this series, even though the Warriors are a slight underdog. Vegas hit them up a little bit. I think yesterday Minnesota was something like maybe close to a 60% favorite. That's closed a little bit with some Warriors money coming the other way, but we'll get into that conversation a little bit later. The Giants cannot play like that against better teams. We'll get into that conversation as we look down the chalkboard as well. By the way, one of the things, we go back to the Timberwolves and the Warriors. Really nice piece that Anthony Slater did today, chronicling the history between the Timberwolves and the Warriors, and it's not on-court history. This is actually the first time the two teams have met as far as a series is concerned, but there's all sorts of history that have shaped both of these franchises over the last, 10, 15, 20 years. We'll get into that conversation. It's a nice piece. Plus, something we talk about the draft all the time, just one spot Anthony Edwards would have been amazing. And remember, the Warriors had the worst record because they were 15 and 50 that year. Steph got hurt and all that stuff. And Minnesota actually had 19 wins, so they were better, but they still, because the ping pong balls got Anthony Edwards. Warriors got James Wiseman, so we'll get into that as well. But all has not been bad, obviously, between the bouncing balls and so forth and who picks whom as far as the Timberwolves and the Warriors are concerned. So we'll get into that conversation a little bit today. A bunch of other stuff. Great caboose pistol for you today that I found that's pretty crazy in the city of Eugene, Oregon, home of the Fighting Ducks. So we'll get into all those things, but we'll do that. If you're new around here, we hit up the chalkboard. Then we say good morning to everybody, and I do mean everybody on the chat lines. Let me just move this thing up. Like I said, I'm dumb. I got to be honest. I got to get a mouse for this laptop, and it makes it harder for me to go up and down to check everybody out, to say good morning to everybody, but nobody cares about that. Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Dom. Good morning, Folsom Steve. It is great to see you. Good morning. There is Daniel, our good friend. Good morning, y'all, as he says. Morning, guys. Joey is here. That is great news. Hello. Is that Lunda Bulls? Hi, AJ. Good to see you this morning. My eyes aren't working yet, but they will in just a second. I just got to get a few more. I got one coffee in me, and I'm working on a Red Bull. Sugar-free, of course, doctor, if you're watching. Pine Needle is here today. It is great to see you. Mark, it is great to see you, my friend. Who else do we have here today? Good morning to Christian is here today. If I do not hit you, hi, 49ers Dire. If I do not hit you up, hello, Taylor. It is good to see you. Smiley Dan, it is great to see you. Smiley Dan, I don't know if I've seen you in a while, so it was great to see you back in the chat room. And again, you can hit us all up. You're like, where's that chat room at? It's at John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. So hit us up on there, because I got a question for you. Let's just make this a running theme throughout the show this morning, which is, do you think they'll win the series? Talking about the Warriors, how many games do you think they'll win? And give me a short reason why. I know in the chat room there's not a ton. You could just put it's almost like the game of Clue. What is it? God, man, I'm talking about a board game. My God, age yourself, Lund. Colonel Mustard in the library with the wrench. I don't know. I can't even remember because I haven't played that game in so long. But you get the idea. You can make it really short and sweet. You can make it about Curry. You can make it about the size. You can make it about the rest. You can make it. We had a ton of different things. Did a lot of stuff on the Timberwolves last night, so I got way too much to talk about as far as the Timberwolves are concerned. By the way, before I forget, because I didn't put it on the chalkboard, I told you it's not that Oklahoma City is not a good basketball team. I tell you all the time about 82 game teams and 16 game teams. Oklahoma City has wonderful depth. They're really good. They're good offensively. They're good defensively. They might win 4 straight from Denver. But there is something about being a veteran team. The Warriors showed it at the end of Game 7 against the Rockets. They sealed them off. The play that Jimmy made at the end, he gets the free throws. Fred VanVleet pushes him. He hits the mid-range jumper, followed by Curry, followed by Hield, and they sealed that game. There's just something to it. And last night, Denver was down. They were down. They didn't look like they had anything last night. Oklahoma City, I wouldn't say was controlling the game, but they kind of had them at an arm's length for a lot of that game. And then they come back and Aaron Gordon again, the Bay Area zone. Aaron Gordon hits a 3 and Denver somehow walks out of there with a victory. And if I'm Oklahoma City or a fan of Oklahoma City, I'm going, what just happened? Like those fans had to be stunned. They were winning the whole game. And all of a sudden it was like, what just happened? And so now it comes down to how does Oklahoma City and a bunch of young guys who have never gone through this respond, because they can't go down 2-0 at home. Jokic played great last night, but Denver in general, they weren't playing the way, especially offensively, rhythmic. It wasn't working. And all of a sudden they walk out of the building with a win. And here you're Oklahoma City. When's the last time Oklahoma City faced any kind of adversity? I'm waiting. I mean, Chet Holmgren got hurt early this year. But in terms of having to win a basketball game, and this is what I mean, you want to go through it. It's the same thing in life. You hate going through it at the time, but it makes you tougher. And I'm always trying to give my son speeches, and he looks at me like, Dad. But he's 21. I mean, he's a blank slate. And he doesn't realize like all these things that you have to go through to get somewhere in life, they're actually good for you. And Denver's gone through it. The Warriors have gone through it. All these teams have gone through it. Oklahoma City hasn't. So I'm not saying Oklahoma City can't win a championship. I'm not saying Cleveland can't win a championship. But they both lost game ones. And they're both looking at each other, and especially in the case of the Oklahoma City Thunder, where you're playing a team that's won a championship, and you're all of a sudden one game into the playoffs, and I think you're in a must-win situation. You're not going to go to down 0-2 to the Nuggets and go back to or go to an arena 5,280 feet, as they are always reminding you of, and winning that series, going down 0-2 at home. You're not winning that. And they may believe that they can, but they're all of a sudden, after having not had a must-win game all season long, they're one game into the second round against Denver, and they're in a must-win situation, at least to me. And again, must-win is not the accurate term. You're right. I know you're going to call me out on that because I say that all the time. It's not must-win because they keep playing even if they lose game 2. But let me correct myself. It's a critical game for Oklahoma City, second game into that series. So it's all of a sudden it's really important for a team who has done that. When's the last time they'd had to do that? Had to win a game. These guys together, probably never. And so, or at least to last season's playoffs for these guys. So it's been a long time. And all of a sudden they've got to conjure that up and everything else. And then last night, the Celtics, and this is the opposite of that. Here's a championship team, has a 20-point lead at home, and they blow it, and the Knicks go in there and win. And I think Boston's going to win that series because they have the experience. But that was an interesting game to watch. And the Knicks have a lot of talent. The Knicks are one of those teams that if they played up to their capabilities, their full capabilities, they'd be a championship contender. They could beat Boston in that series. I think Boston comes back. But did you see the number? It's just mind blowing. If you're going to work today or in the chat room, Boston missed 45. I'm slowing that. 45. They missed 45 threes. 45. My God, man. Larry Bird's probably somewhere going, I didn't take 45 in my career. You guys have missed 45 threes. So they just couldn't throw it in the ocean, and Knicks came back and won. So that's what we got early on as playoff series are concerned. And then, of course, tonight, game 2, Cleveland and Indiana. Indiana steals game 1. And then game 1 between the Timberwolves and the Warriors. So let's get to that in just a second. But this is something, again, I'm going to ask you this. Ask your opinion on this. So watch this whole thing. So again, I don't want to be get off my lawn guy, but I don't really like it. I mean, it is what it is. So it's not something I can change, and it's not something that bothers me overtly. But when somebody brings it up, then I'll bring it up. Which is Draymond Green was pissed off on his podcast. He's with Baron Davis here. He's pissed off in his podcast because Dillon Brooks didn't shake hands with everybody and fraternized at the end of the series. And Tari Eason didn't either. And he likes Tari Eason. So he saw Tari Eason later on, like coming out of the locker room or whatever. And he actually caught up to him. So he wants everybody to hug and hang out and everything like that. And I do like what hockey does. You know, they do the lines and they, you beat the hell out of each other for whatever amount of games. And then you have to do the lines and respect everybody at the end of that. I get it. But I grew up in an era where Magic hated Bird. And I know later on they did documentaries and everything. And at the end of the day, they respected each other and so forth. But they walked off the court. The Pistons, they would lose series. They'd turn around and they'd walk down their locker room. Isaiah Thomas left games before they were even over, like game sevens. He just walked off the court like game's over, I'm out. Jordan didn't dap up people. He didn't hug everybody. He hugged his own teammates, that when they won championships, they didn't go over and made sure that he respected, whomever he just beat, Karl Malone or Magic Johnson or whatever in the NBA finals, wherever they played, Sean Kemp, Gary Payton. Like they didn't do that. It just wasn't part of it. It's just kind of, it's just become a thing probably in the last, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years where everybody was doing Campbell's soup commercials and Chunky soup commercials and everybody's fraternizing and we want you to get on our team and you're playing in the Olympics together and you have similar agents and you do similar commercials and you rep certain products together and you've done this, that, and the other, and everyone's become friends. But 20 or so years ago, they just didn't. It was like, we lost the series. I hate you. And next year I want to come back and kick your ass. I mean, I like that. I like that people don't like each other. I like that they're not fraternizing. I like that they're not hugging each other. I like that when you're down 25 on the bench, that you're not smiling and laughing. I don't know. I'm a throwback in that way. I'm very modern in terms of my thought process and a lot of things in sports. I'm certainly not Bob Costas when it comes to baseball. I like certain rule changes, all that kind of stuff. I'm not get off your lawn guy. It's just that I don't know, in competition, and I like to think of myself like when I'm not trying to say that I was an athlete in any way, shape, or form at any point in my life, but I did play all the sports, and I never liked losing, and I never would go over to somebody who just beat me and hug them and dap them up and laugh and smile. I mean, I was pissed. I wanted to go back to my car. My parents were going to drive me home, and I wanted to get in the car and sulk and be pissed off. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's just the way I grew up. That's the way athletes were when I grew up. And so that is kind of a long backdrop to this whole thing. Here's Draymond Green. He's pissed off at Dillon Brooks and kind of at Tari Eason, although I think he rectified that situation because they didn't. And Draymond does this at the end of every series. I don't know if you watched it at the end, but Draymond's hugging everybody. And, he's kicking you in the nuts and he's punching you in the face and he's knocking Fred VanVleet down and he's doing this and that. And he's flailing all over the place. And then he hugs everybody. It's kind of like it's hockey-ish in that way. So give me your thoughts on this. But here it is here. And it's the way things go now and it's here to stay. It's not going to change. There are certain guys that don't like to do it. Like I'm trying to think this off the top of my head. I don't think Kawhi Leonard goes and hugs everybody. I could be wrong, but Kawhi Leonard strikes me as a throwback guy. He doesn't do a whole lot of talking. He's forced to talk to the media, doesn't really want to talk to the media. And I think that when win or lose, Kawhi Leonard just goes to the locker room. That's how I would be. But anyway, here's Draymond. He's mad at Dillon Brooks because he didn't fraternize with everybody. And he thinks that's a lack of respect.
You're going to be Mr. Big Bad Wolf. Don't lose and then not face the music. Don't be that guy because, again, you lose a lot of respect for guys in that moment. I had a moment with Dillon Brooks back when he was with Memphis, and I said the dynasty start after you. And the reason I said that is because things like that. Because, bro, so then guess what? Then Tari Eason do it. He lead the court. I got love for Tari Eason. His mom was talking, you know what I'm saying? My mom almost had to get out of it.
You got a lot of, man, you shouted him out earlier in the year, though.
Absolutely. I got a lot of love for the way he played. Yeah. And I ended up catching him right before he was about to walk out the arena, and he was walking this way, so he didn't have to come by me, but I could, in my distance, I could see him right there. I said to him, I like waved him down, and I went and I dapped him up. And that was kind of a little save, but don't be that guy, man. Like you gotta
teach him. You gotta teach him.
You lose a series.
You gotta teach him right.
But that's who Dillon Brooks is.
All right, so there's Draymond on it. By the way, Mark hits us up and says on the chat line and says, I don't remember Dre saying anything when Bron walks off the court. Yeah, Bron. I want to be consistent here because I don't have a problem with LeBron. Like a lot of things, I'll take a shot at LeBron. By the way, none of it is on the court. It's just kind of the way he acts and the diving. He doesn't have to do that. And if you're greatest player of all time, not to go on a LeBron thing here, the diving and the flopping and all that kind of stuff. When you're 6'8", 260 and built like a brick wall, it's just, that stuff's silly. And I have I lose respect for him, which I'm sure he loses sleep over at night. But he does that all the time. He broads and he's kind of a little bit of a baby and he walks off the court and people don't like it, but he doesn't say anything because they're really good friends. But I don't know. Like I said, it's not gonna piss me off. I'm not gonna think about it beyond this moment. But when he said that, I watched that this morning, that off his podcast with Baron Davis, and I thought to myself, man, that's just not me. I'm not gonna, hey, you just beat me, way to go. I don't know. Maybe that's poor sportsmanship. But again, we're not playing Little League. I understand it when Little Leaguers, you got to do that line. I don't know if you had to do it, but I had to do it. So you play a Little League game and you have the line just like you have the hockey line at the end of a series. You got to go and shake hands with Billy and Jimmy and Joey and all that kind of stuff. And you're crying, because maybe you struck out to end the game. I remember one time I got caught stealing. The only thing I could do was run. I was fast. So I was our center fielder and I could run really fast. And other than that, I could bunt to get on. I could hit a little bit, kind of a punch and Judy, kind of a, go the opposite way kind of a thing. I could do a little bit. But I remember one time I got caught stealing second base. And I was in that line that you had to do because you had to shake hands a little. Like I remember crying, like keeping my head down. So I had thrown out to end the game and my team was all pissed off at me. But so maybe that's why I don't like shaking hands or doing anything like that. But I don't know. Everybody's from a business sense, in line with everybody, and everybody's agent's the same, and everybody's trying to get everybody on the same team and I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't keep me up at night. It's just, I found it to be funny that in this period of time when I was watching sports and really as a young guy impressing well on it, I liked when teams just left the court. I liked, again, I wasn't a bad boy Pistons fan, but I kind of liked it that they walked off the court. I kind of liked it that Jordan and the Bulls didn't talk to the Pistons. They didn't talk to the Lakers and they beat them. Magic and Michael Jordan didn't hug and all that kind of stuff. And Larry Bird and Magic didn't. I mean, they did documentaries later and they respected each other, but you got to give me a minute to cool off. Like it's not that we're not friends. It's not, we can't be friends. It's not like we can't do a commercial together later. It's not, but in that moment, I mean, just like whatever you do, it could be business. It could be, a fun game of whatever it is you like to do with your friends. I don't care. I don't care if it's ping pong or video games or I don't, you're pissed. Like you're not, or right on, bro, way to beat me. Like, I don't know. Me and my friends aren't like that. Like we get pissed, fantasy football, like anything like that. I'm not happy about it. I'm not, I'm not sitting there going, oh man, it's cool. We're good. Like pissed. Anyway. All right. I'm over it. I just had to do that. That had to end the Rocket series once and for all. And as I said yesterday, I don't want to see the Rockets again. Not in the near future. They're going to be really good. And I have a feeling in the offseason, and then we'll move on to the Timberwolves. I have a weird feeling in the offseason they're going to do something. Now, I don't know if it's going to screw them up or not, but Jalen Green had a horrible series. And there's rumors of Giannis and Durant and all these guys that are that aren't real happy where they are. LeBron James. I don't think LeBron's going to Houston. Although if I'm the Lakers and I want to put something around Luka that is going to work, I wouldn't hesitate to call Houston because they've got a bunch of young guys. Luka's only 26. I mean, I could see that. They give you a bunch of picks, all those kind of things. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I don't know. I think for some reason, and it might be a mistake, I think Houston, if I'm Houston, I'm just going to stay with my continuity, kind of like what the Warriors did. They could have, when it was back to Harrison Barnes and all those kind of things, they could have traded. There was all these kind of discussions, but they said, we're going to be good for a long time. Let's just wait it out and have continuity. And that's what I would do if I were them, but whatever. That's irrelevant to our conversation today. All right. There's a great piece today. As we look at the chalkboard, it says Minnesota/GS history, not on the court. Anthony Slater wrote a great piece in The Athletic today. And look, The Athletic doesn't give me any money. I read it every day. He's great covering the Warriors. Our good friend Marcus Thompson is great. There's all sorts of great people that are, as I'm overusing that word, Matt Barrows does an amazing job. I almost did it again. Does an amazing job covering the 49ers for The Athletic. They just added Vic Tafer. If you didn't know that, Vic is great. Here I am doing an ad for The Athletic. Vic is really, really good, coming back from the Raiders beat for, I think, the last 15 years. But so anyway, Anthony Slater does a really nice job. And he wrote a piece today. This is the first time the Timberwolves and the Warriors have met in the playoffs. But in terms of history, there may not be, over the last 20 years, the length of Steph's career almost, a more important team as far as transactions are concerned than Minnesota as far as Golden State success is concerned. I mean, if you think about it, obviously Steph Curry, they take Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn ahead of Steph Curry. So that's everything. They took 2 point guards directly ahead of Steph Curry. And we can talk about draft mistakes, draft this, draft that, whatever the case may be. One of the worst, if not the worst. I mean, I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but look, I don't care if it's Jamarcus Russell. I don't care if it's Trey Lance. I don't care if it's Ryan Leaf. I don't care if it's whatever. It's pretty damn hard to say, the basketball gods say, okay, we're going to give you these 2 choices and you're going to take 2 point guards. And Steph Curry's on the board. And they go, okay, Johnny Flynn. And the gods go, ooh, bad choice. Try again. Ricky Rubio. Sorry. And then you take Steph Curry. They took 2 point guards ahead of Steph Curry. I know you know that, but I'm going to just reiterate it. The gods gave them 2 chances. They said, you're going to take 2 point guards. Go ahead. And Steph Curry's on the board. Johnny Flynn, Ricky Rubio. So right then and there, you're like, thank you, Minnesota Timberwolves. We appreciate you. And then when Kevin Durant, and this is in the story, and you know this, but I'm going to remind you, just like Anthony Slater reminded you in the piece today, that D'Angelo Russell was going to Minnesota because Karl Anthony Towns was there, and he was a free agent. He was coming from the Nets, and he was going to sign a contract that was $110 million, not exactly a max, but $110 million with Minnesota. But then the Warriors intervened, and Bob Myers, and I've actually talked to Bob about this before, they intervened not because they wanted, and this is how the rules in the NBA work, and again, we're reminding you because I'm sure you know this, that if Kevin Durant hadn't worked with the Warriors for a sign and trade deal, when you're over the cap like they were and still are, that money that Kevin Durant makes, it's like a hole. I don't know why he did it like that, because that doesn't really make any sense, but it evaporates is what it does. And so you don't have that money to spend. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's like, look, you need a placeholder. In other words, hold that open so that we can spend the money. So they never wanted D'Angelo Russell, the Warriors, but they said, hell, we got to give him a max contract. It's not worth it. Not going to fit. He's a guy that needs the ball in his hands. It's not going to work with Steph Curry, but we just have to get that money. We have to get that money so that we can have a placeholder, and then we can move D'Angelo Russell at some point. And them knowing in the back of their head that the Minnesota Timberwolves wanted D'Angelo Russell because they wanted to satisfy Karl Anthony Towns, who at that point was everything to them. He was their number one guy. There was no Anthony Edwards yet. So the Warriors being 2 steps ahead in this chess game, Bob Myers and company, they get the deal for D'Angelo Russell. He is in Minnesota going, oh, sorry, guys, I'm going to keep going now from Brooklyn to Minnesota. Now I'm going to Golden State. So they get him, and everybody's kind of like, that's a weird trade. But everybody knew financially and from a business standpoint, they had to keep that money window open. So they do. What does he last? A half a season here. Minnesota trades for him. And for some wild reason, it's Wiggins and what turned out to be the number 7 pick, which turned out to be Jonathan Kuminga. And that's going to be a gift that keeps on giving. Hang on just 1 second. So the Timberwolves have given you on a platter Steph Curry. They've given you on a platter. Basically, you lose Durant. You're like, oh, my God, it's over. That turns into Wiggins. Helps you win the 22 championship, regardless of what you think of him. And, he was inconsistent and maddening and had personal issues and dealing with family issues and all the different things. And, sometimes didn't look like he was awake. But the bottom line is they don't win the 2022 championship without Andrew Wiggins. They don't. And then they use Andrew Wiggins to turn that into Jimmy Butler, who extends the window. So Minnesota, in some way, shape, or form, has given you Steph Curry. They've given you Jimmy Butler. And now they're going to give you whatever is going to be the remnants of Jonathan Kuminga, because Jonathan Kuminga is going to get traded in this offseason. The Warriors aren't going to give him the big contract. He doesn't fit. You and I have had that conversation a million times. So now whatever they get back from Jonathan Kuminga can be directly attributed to a trade with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So let's say that they get a big in the out. Let's just, for the sake of conversation, because it's really the easiest puzzle piece to put in there, and I don't know that this is going to be it, but let's just play the game. Miles Turner. Miles Turner's out there. Naz Reid. I'm talking about a stretch big. And in Miles Turner's case, he can also block some shots, and he can at least guard Şengün and some of these bigger guys in the league, grab some rebounds. For his size, he's not the greatest rebounder, but again, you're trying to fill a hole here. So maybe they turn it into, just for the sake of our conversation, Miles Turner. All right, so now you're looking at next year's roster and you're saying, okay, you got Jimmy Butler and you got Draymond Green up front. Now you have a legit center and a guy like Miles Turner. You have Steph Curry and you have Podziemski and you have guys coming off the bench and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, Minnesota is attributable to a lot of those players. So it's an interesting dynamic, and it's a great piece that Anthony Slater wrote, kind of dialing it back all the way to those kind of things. But then the other part of this whole thing is that's really interesting. And I knew this, but I kind of, maybe I forgot about it. I don't know. Which is the Wiseman-Edwards ball draft, right? What is that, 2020? So I didn't realize, maybe I did and I just forgot about it. Maybe and maybe, like I said, millions of things flying through your head every single day. So maybe I forgot about this. But in looking at that draft, and you can go back to tapes or anything at KNBR, I was a LaMelo Ball guy. I know not a lot of people were, but in talking to a lot of people in the league, they were split on LaMelo Ball, and the personality, and he's been injured a lot and everything else. But I liked LaMelo Ball. I liked him ahead of Anthony Edwards. I liked him ahead of James Wiseman. I was like, that's the guy I would like. He could take the pressure off Steph Curry as far as handling the ball. He could have been a third guard. I liked him. Anthony Edwards, I knew was a great athlete. I just wasn't sure. You heard things about work ethic, all those kind of things. So anyway, draft comes up, and in this piece that Anthony Slater wrote, and I do remember this, but then I forgot or something. But he talks about how the Warriors were going to take James Wiseman regardless. So we've talked about this a million times, like, just one pick away if the Warriors had gotten that pick. Because remember, the Warriors had the best odds to getting that first pick. They won 15 games. They were 15-50 in that shortened year, and Minnesota had won 19 games. But the ping pong balls went in Minnesota's direction. They ended up taking Anthony Edwards. Well, the Warriors, had they gotten the number one pick, still would have taken James Wiseman. And if the Timberwolves, who really didn't consider this because they had Karl Anthony Towns at the time, did not have Rudy Gobert yet, they didn't want a team, especially in today's day and age where it's more about the perimeter. They did not want a team Karl Anthony Towns and James Wiseman. They didn't want to do the double big, which is ironic because now that's what they do with Rudy Gobert, and it works pretty well for them. But anyway, the Warriors were going to take James Wiseman anyway. And so there's a part of, and let me just throw this up there, and I kept Anthony Slater in there because I wanted him to get credit for this. But Anthony Slater, hang on one second. My thing is screwing around here. It's getting on for some reason, if I don't shut my iPad down, and there we go. Okay, I have it. So Anthony Slater reposted this, and he asked Steve Kerr the question about when Anthony Edwards worked out for the Warriors. It wasn't a very good workout because at that point, and I think Edwards was either 19 or 20, he was really young. He just played one season at Georgia. He didn't really know how to work. I mean, we assume these guys get to this level and they know how to work, and they don't, because a lot of times, and this was part of the problem with James Wiseman and why he didn't make it, Wiseman never had to learn the intricacies of basketball. He was 7 foot, 240 pounds, super athletic. Only played 3 games at Memphis. We know that. 69 total minutes. Nice. 3 games or 2.5 games before he got suspended by the NCAA and went straight into professional basketball. He never had to learn the intricacies. He was 7 foot, 240 and more athletic and bigger than everybody else. He could dunk over him, do whatever, like on a high school basketball court, James Wiseman, do whatever he wanted. Same thing with Anthony Edwards, do whatever he wanted. So they didn't have to work. They didn't have to learn the intricacies of the game. They didn't have to, they're always being told how great they are. They could probably play at half or 3/4 speed and kick the shit out of anybody that they play against. So there's really not any motivation at that point to play hard or be better or to go 100 miles an hour and play to your maximum level. And so he works out for the Warriors, and it was one of the reasons why they weren't going to draft him even if they got the first pick, was that they worked him out, I think 2 or 3 times. And Steve Kerr finally said to Anthony Edwards, and I'll let you tell him the story, or let he tell you the story, but he's basically like, dude, can you go any harder than that? So anyway, here's Steve Kerr recalling the workout, I think a couple of workouts with Anthony Edwards, which was they weren't going to draft him because he didn't have good workouts at the Warriors.
Warming up and shooting, and the warm-up kept going and going. I thought it was a warm-up, and after about 15 minutes, I realized that was the workout. So it was during the pandemic, so it was only Bob Myers and Joe Lacob and me and Anthony and his guys working him out. So I just went down and I said, "Can you go a little harder?" And he kind of looked at me like, Yeah. Okay, and they started going harder, and we ended up going back there a couple weeks later to work him out again, and we went out to dinner, and he told me, he said, "Hey, thanks for saying that. I didn't realize how hard I needed to work or what I needed to show." And it was a good reminder to me that these guys who are coming out at such a young age really haven't learned how to work yet. And one of the things we always do here is we have our young guys watch Steph Curry work out after practice. And I remember saying something to Anthony at dinner about Steph and Kevin Durant and Clay. I said, you're going to see when you get to that next level, like it takes game-like reps in practice to be able to hone your skill. And we had a great conversation, and he's such a great young guy. And of course, we bonded this past summer. And
he's talking about, of course, winning the gold medal with Edwards, and he was an alpha on that team. I mean, we'll get into the preview of the series in just a second, but so that's kind of the history of the Timberwolves and the Warriors, and it's not an on-court history. Again, this is the first time that they've met in the playoffs, but between the Wolves taking 2 point guards ahead of Steph Curry, David Kahn wasn't a basketball guy, and he was the general manager of the Wolves. So thank you very much. This is why the entire run has happened, is because of the Timberwolves at that time. That management was that inept. And then them trying to satisfy a superstar many years later in Karl Anthony Towns, and then saying, okay, we'll give you what ended up being the number 7 overall pick in Andrew Wiggins, so you don't win a championship in 2022. At least I don't believe you do, unless you have Andrew Wiggins, for as many things as we said negatively about Andrew Wiggins. And then you turn him into Jimmy Butler, which again is attributable to that Minnesota trade. And then still what Jonathan Kuminga could possibly bring back, or will bring back, I think, in the offseason when they trade him, and probably for a stretch big, and maybe with a sign and trade for somebody like Miles Turner. So these things continue on and on and on and on and on. And now for the first time they meet Minnesota. So let's look at that. And by the way, lots of good stuff popping up on the chat. Let me hit a few of these things. We also have some supers. You can automatically 100% get your chats on the screen if you hit me up with supers. Good morning, boys. Look at that. Christian saying good morning to his boys this morning. Absolutely cool. Also, thanks, as always, to Fuji. Bottom of the pint this Friday, grill cam ready. 100%, by the way, Fuji. We will have the grill cam, and I will be back in town. I'll be back tomorrow. Been traveling this week, but I will be back tomorrow, back in the studio. And yes, 100%. We will have both grill cam because I owe you, and we will be doing bottom of the pint for the Giants. And I'll get into a little bit of Giants today. Mostly today's show will be about the Warriors and previewing Timberwolves and Warriors. But yeah, a couple of things in watching that game last night kind of made me want to vomit. And so we'll get into those things a little bit. Justin Verlander goes tonight. So very, very, very cool. Let's see. What do we got here? People were hitting me up with some things. Yeah, the Rubio thing. Who hit me up with that? I just saw that. Yeah, at the time, I mean, everybody was like, Ricky Rubio. I'm not – Johnny Flynn, the Syracuse point guard, that came out of nowhere. I mean, that was just absolutely crazy. And then remember, if we want to take this a step further, the Currys wanted nothing to do with Golden State. I mean, this as much as you can turn around a franchise, Steph has turned around this franchise. We all know that, but you have to harken back a little bit. I mean, this was a joke. This place was a joke. Think of any team right now that's a joke in sports. I mean, the Colorado Rockies are a complete joke. The Clippers at that time were a joke. Jacksonville. I mean, all these teams, that's where the Warriors were. And Steph just pulled them out of that, and Minnesota just handed it to them on an absolute platter, this whole thing. And then it just kind of started. But like I said, the there we go. Okay, we're back. Hopefully that you didn't lose me too much. I think we got it. I think we're good. Sorry about that. Made sure that we lost it there just for a second, and I think we're back. Thank you, Papa Jane. Good morning to you. Like and subscribe to both channels, John Lund Unleashed and to the Bay Area Sports Collective. Thank you so much for that, Papa J. Good morning to you, and thank you so much. Hello, James. Hello, Rockin' New Era. I think we said hello to you, but if I didn't, I wanted to say good morning to you. All right, so let's start looking at the the series itself. First of all, I mentioned this briefly yesterday. You look through an 82-game schedule for any team in the NBA, and it's not like playing the scheduled game in the NFL where there's only 17 games, and so you go through win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. In the NBA, you don't really do that. But what you can do in the NBA, especially for an older team like the Warriors, is you say to yourself, okay, there's 3 games in 5 nights. There's a back-to-back at the end of this road trip against a fairly tough team. You can almost put in the L's. I'm not saying you can put in the W's or anything like that. There's a game to be played on the court. It's not played on paper. So you kind of go, okay. But you can put in some L's where you go, yeah, the schedule makers just didn't do them any favors there. That's probably going to be a loss. Well, that's kind of what it feels like in going into game 1. So this is a massive game in that Minnesota's had all the rest. Minnesota beat the Lakers 4-1. They got a ton of momentum right now. They're feeling great about themselves. Anthony Edwards is doing a bunch of talking. I'll play something up in just a second from Anthony Edwards, who's like, he wants to play the Warriors. This was a couple of years ago, but the trash talking and everybody's playing it up. This has got to be, if I'm Minnesota, the Warriors played 48 hours ago. By the time the ball is tipped off, it'll be 48 hours, a tough, physical 7-game series with the Houston Rockets. I've been sitting around since I easily beat the Lakers. So this has got to be, if this was the regular season, this would be a built-in L. This would be a built-in loss for the Warriors. If this was the regular season, you'd be like, oh, if you're a betting man, you'd say, well, they're going to lose game 1. So if the Warriors somehow, with their tired legs and old bodies, can figure out a way to steal game 1, kind of like Denver did last night in OKC with that Aaron Gordon shot to win that thing. They had to go 7 with the Clippers, turn around and play a fresh Oklahoma City team that swept Memphis. There's no excuse for Oklahoma City to lose that game, especially late. Like, you'd think Denver would be like, and they're a veteran team. They've won a championship, and that's why. But kind of mirroring that game last night, Denver played a tough series with the Clippers, a 7-game series. They end up winning. They got to turn around real quickly, and they got to play the number 1 seed, and everybody's, Oklahoma City. Oh, my God, Oklahoma City. And then Denver turns around and wins that game. It's like, whoa. So not only, as I said earlier, is Oklahoma City reeling from that thing and playing, I think, for their basketball lives in game 2, because I don't think, again, it's not must win, but if they don't win game 2 and they go to Denver down 0-2, which Denver's probably the toughest place to play in the NBA, they're in trouble if they don't win game 2. So same thing kind of applies here, is that this should be a built-in loss for the Warriors. 48 hours ago, they're playing Houston. It's a tough 7-game series. It's a physical 7-game series. If somehow the Warriors pull this game out, that is massive. And you're playing with the head of a team in Minnesota that, while they went to the conference finals last year and lost to Dallas, they haven't won anything. What does Anthony Edwards won? What does Rudy Gobert won? These guys haven't won anything. What does Julius Randle won? They haven't won anything. So while I wouldn't call Minnesota a young team like I would Houston or like I would Oklahoma City, they've got veterans. Anthony Edwards has been through the wars. Mike Conley, longtime Utah Jazz man, as is Rudy Gobert. They've played in a lot of playoff series, but none of those guys have won anything. They haven't won anything, so they don't know what it's like. So from a playoff experience standpoint, you still give the advantage to the Warriors. So first and foremost, rest, and I put that up there, rest is a thing because they're playing every other game. So there's no time to catch up. That 7-game series, and I said this about game 5 when they're up 3-1, I was like, this is a critical game to win because Steve Kerr talks about rest, and I tell you about rest all the time, and I'm not going to go through it again, how back in the day, Jerry Sloan would punch me in the face if I asked him about rest and being tired and all those kind of things, and so I won't go down that road again, but it's a definite thing. So if somehow they can do what Denver did, which is playing a 7-game series, turn around 48 hours later, stay in the game. They were just at arm's length a lot of the game last night, Denver, in Oklahoma City. Stay in the game, and then a push at the end. Maybe they can steal this game, and all of a sudden you're Minnesota going, wait a minute. We had all the rest. We were sitting around. We smoked the Lakers. That wasn't even a tough series. And now we're down 0-1 to the Warriors? How the hell did that happen? So tonight becomes a really critical game. I write down there, let me do this too. Let me just back up for a second. It says Minnesota under series preview on the chalkboard. It says Minnesota / Golden State 16 sprint teams. Minnesota wasn't a top seed. The Warriors weren't a top seed. I look at these two teams as playoff type teams. They both have a superstar player like Edwards and Curry. They're different. They're built different. The Timberwolves are bigger and more physical. The Timberwolves, from a statistical standpoint, they're top 10 in the NBA this season, both in offensive and defensive efficiency. So they're really good on both ends of the floor. And then they put a vice grip on you in the playoffs. They're a tough half-court defense. I think you have to get out and run. I think that they have to, unlike Houston, where it was like, okay, let's keep Houston in the half court and make them beat us in the half court, which at times was Şengün, who is their only really great half court player. He beat him at times. Against Minnesota, I want to make Rudy Gobert run. I want to make Julius Randle run. I want to make Mike Conley run. I want to get a bit down the floor. I'm not saying you want to, make it a 120. It's not going to be a 121, 18 series. That's not how it plays in the playoffs. But I do think that you have to do some of those things. And then in addition, bring Rudy Gobert out and everything like that. But I think these are two 16 sprint teams, if that makes sense. It's not 82. And neither team was real high up in the Western Conference standings. And at times, Minnesota until the end where they had a spurt, they were looking like a play-in team a lot of the season. So these are 16 sprint teams to me, which is their playoffs. They're built for the playoffs, not so much the 82. Conversely, I think a team like Oklahoma City, they got a ton of depth, and through an 82-game season, that's awesome. But you're going to cut that bench to about 8 in the playoffs, and those guys have all got to be great. So number one on the list, beyond rest. So number one, rest is it. And tonight we'll see if the Warriors have tired legs. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they got beat by 20 and just were too damn tired to play against Minnesota tonight. And if I'm Minnesota and I watch that Houston series, I'm being as physical as I possibly can, and they have the size. Rudy Gobert has been ineffective a lot in games against the Warriors, but he was great last time out with 27 points, 24 boards, and 9 offensive rebounds. So they're going to crash the offensive glass like Houston. They're going to be as physical as they possibly can, and they're going to put the onus on the officials in calling fouls. They're going to grab, clutch, hug Curry. Curry had great games against Minnesota this regular season. Playoffs are different, but that's one thing I expect. So I'll get into the superstars in just a second. But one of the things that is going to rear its ugly head again, and it's not going to be able to change until the offseason when I think the Warriors use Jonathan Kuminga to get more size, whether that's Miles Turner or somebody else. But they're going to get more size in the offseason, but there's nothing they can do about it now. So Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle is underrated, played a great series against the Lakers. Naz Reid is more of an outside three-point threat, but he can crash the glass, and he's got size. He's about 6'11", 6'10", 6'11", 250, so he's big. He can crash the boards. They can play a big lineup together. And so that's going to be a problem. That's going to be an absolute problem. Anybody they face from this point forward, whether it be Minnesota, whether it be Oklahoma City, whether it be Denver, whether they end right now, whatever the case may be, if they were to get to the NBA Finals, which I don't think they will, but if they did, teams waiting over there all have size. So this is just going to be a major problem for the Warriors. And it went from, the league went from, we only want like perimeter players to, well, at least we got to add some size. And the Warriors just really haven't. And so it's Draymond Green versus the world. And it's going to be like that in this series as well. Now, he doesn't have to worry about a Şengün, but Draymond Green is probably going to have to worry about a guy like Julius Randle and then whomever is going to take Gobert, because he's a garbage man on the offensive end. He's going to be in the dunker position. He's going to be a garbage man, and he's going to stay down there. And the Warriors are going to have to force him out of the game, kind of like they did Steven Adams. Now, not with fouling. It was like, okay, hacking Adams or whatever they did, and then they forced him off the floor at times. Jabari Smith came in, more of a three-point threat, but certainly not the physical presence that Steven Adams was. So they're going to try to do the same thing, which is, okay, Rudy, we're going to draw you out. So that means Quentin Post. Quentin Post is going to have to be a factor in this series. He's going to hit shots. They may play some zone because they saw what Houston did, and they can play a long zone. They've got a lot of long defensive players, long players on their team. They could do the same thing that Houston did with that length. They can play a zone against the Warriors. I fully expect them to mix it up and do some of those things that Houston did, because Houston was effective at times with a lot of those things. So the physicality of it, figuring out a zone, worrying what to do with Rudy Gobert on the offensive glass, just a lot of things to do with size in this series the Warriors are going to have to deal with. That's one of the things. And so in order to do that, you're going to have to, first of all, you're going to have to do what everybody does in the NBA. And sometimes it drives me crazy. I understand all the switches. I totally get it. But sometimes, like, how about fighting hard through a switch so that Steph Curry isn't stuck on Anthony Edwards, or so that Steph Curry is not stuck on Julius Randle or something like that? Like, too many times in the Houston series, there's a switch and then there's a big on Steph Curry, not Şengün or anything like that, but you don't always have to switch. Like, I get it, you switch, but there are certain things where it's like, I'm not going to expose Steph Curry or something like that and get a mismatch that they want. How about I just fight through the pick sometimes? How about that? So I'd like to see more of that on one end, but on the other end, you're going to pick until they switch, and now it's Rudy Gobert against Steph Curry, or it's Rudy Gobert and he's not going to come out and get Quentin Post or whatever. They've got to force him out of the middle, which may even though we've said this before, is the defensive player of the year, which pisses off Draymond Green so much, that they have to force him out of the game by saying, look, he's going to play drop coverage, and we're just going to shoot the ball over him, and he's not going to come out, so he's getting crushed, and you better bring in somebody else. Now, the somebody else a lot of times is going to be like Naz Reid. Well, Naz Reid's going to hit you from the outside. He's not going to be the defender. He's not going to be necessarily the offensive rebounder or anything like that, but then Naz Reid gives you another element that Rudy Gobert doesn't, and now you've got to go out on a guard on the perimeter, and if you're so spread out, they may get offensive rebounds. So it's a catch-22, and they've got enough talent, and any team you're going to play at this point in the playoffs is going to have talent. But I think Naz Reid is a huge key in this series, because anytime it seems like Minnesota beats the Warriors, Naz Reid's just busting the nets. And then all of a sudden you're like, damn, this guy, get him out of the game. Bring him back, Rudy Gobert. So size is going to be a major problem or major issue in this series, just like it was against Houston, in a different way. They don't have a guy that's going to work down low like Şengün, but if Julius Randle gets going, I think he's an underrated guy. And the other end of the floor, like I said, you got to bring Rudy Gobert out. You got to run a little bit, make their bigs run. I think that's a huge thing. And then the obvious part of this whole thing is, let me just start with Steph Curry. They're not getting through this series if Steph Curry has a couple of subpar games that he had against Houston. And I don't think it's on Curry. That's not what I'm saying. And then the third game where he just didn't get going until the end and they really got him going, there's got to be more creative ways to get Steph Curry open. The officiating matters in this series. If they allow the clutching, the grabbing, the hugging that they did in the first round, which they probably will because it's the playoffs, then yeah, it'll be a little bit tougher for Steph Curry. But I'll reiterate something I said at the beginning, which was Steph Curry had a good year against the Timberwolves. They do not have an Amen Thompson. They're going to throw a lot of different guys at Steph Curry. They'll always throw teams, always throw size. Teams always in the playoffs are physical with Steph Curry, but they don't have an individual defender like Amen Thompson. Few teams do. The guy's a really good player. He's a young player. He's only 22, 23 years old. He's going to get better and better. If he develops an outside shot, he's going to be scary. But just on that sense, or that side of it, they don't have a single individual defender like that. They'll throw different guys at him. They'll obviously do what Houston did and every team does. They'll tilt the court and tilt the coverage that way to Steph Curry, which makes it just like it was against Houston. What is Buddy Hield going to do when he's wide open? He's going to hit those shots again like he did in Game 7? What is Podziemski going to do? He was 1 for 7 in Game 7. He's got to be the Podziemski at the end of the year. Moses Moody, is he going to get the opportunity to play in this series? If he does, the corner threes that he likes so much, he's got to knock those down. You're wide friggin' open. Steph Curry's dragging all this coverage, and even though Steph, could score, 17, 18, 20, which is below his average in a game, and maybe struggle to get there. Like you look at Game 7, 8 to 16 from the floor is not bad for Steph Curry, but he just couldn't get the ball a lot of times in key situations. So other guys are going to have to pick it up. I mean, that's just what it comes down to, is that it's okay. They're going to give so much attention to Steph Curry. Pods, you're wide open. Buddy, you're wide open. Moses Moody, you're wide open. We talked about Kuminga. I don't know where Kuminga fits in this series either. I'm sure they sat down with him, and he's just, every time he's coming in the playoffs, and I know it's not easy. I'm immature. I would be pissed off. I would be mad. I don't know how hard it would play. I mean, just being honest, and he's a young guy at 23? I mean, right now he's pouting. When he comes on the floor, he's, I don't want to play for the Warriors. I hate these guys. I can't wait to get traded. I've said this before. You're trying out. You're trying out for every other team. So just use that as motivation and fire, and just, the Warriors were wrong. Look, every time I got in the game, I played well. He may be needed in this series, his length, his athleticism, but I'll reiterate something I've said. You're not Jonathan Kuminga 20-point scorer right now. You're Jonathan Kuminga, scrapper, defender, rebounder, getting on the floor. Think Guy Santos. When Santos comes on the floor, he knows what he's doing. He's a hustle guy. He's an energy guy. Kuminga's got to decide in this series and for the rest of his Warriors career, that's what he is. Now, look, if you get some points, and we're not going to call anything for you, but, if you're in transition in that running style that I'm talking about, and making Rudy Gobert run up and down the floor and Julius Randle run up and down the floor and old Mike Conley run up and down the floor, dude, that's your game. You can get out on the wing and you can run. So they may need him in this series. I don't know that he's going to be counted on very heavily. In Game 7, they kind of did what I talk about all the time with some of these guys. Okay, if you're a fringe player, we're going to see what you got on a certain night. And if you don't have it, then you're not going to get another chance. So to me, it comes down to, for Kuminga to be any kind of a even get any minutes in this series. It's got to come down to, are you going to come in and play the way we need you to play? Not come in and score, 10. Comes down to the fact that Jonathan Kuminga's got to play a certain way to be a part of this series. I don't know that he's going to be a part of this series, but as we saw in the Houston series, injuries happen, like Jimmy Butler's. Foul trouble happens. Things like that. You just don't know what's going to happen, and he's got to be ready. He hasn't been so far, so I don't think he's going to be a factor because he hasn't been so far, and he doesn't have the trust. We use that word all the time with Steve Kerr because he didn't play him in Game 82 against the Clippers. He didn't play him in the play-in game. He reluctantly played him in the Houston series, and he'll probably reluctantly play him in this series if they need him. But they might be some key minutes. There might be an injury. There might be foul trouble. So before you get to it, but I would think Quentin Post, as far as the young guys, Moses Moody's an interesting one because of the athleticism and length of the Rockets, he just didn't fit in that series. If he's hitting shots early, that's what it comes down to. He doesn't make mistakes. He's not a great defender, but he's not a bad defender. He'll get his hands in passing lanes. He'll make plays like that. He'll make smart plays. He won't make dumb plays. He's got to hit shots when they're wide open. And that's one thing if I'm Steve Kerr. He's going to keep Buddy Hield as a starter. There's no doubt about it. Put Pods back in there, and that's going to be our lineup. Moody is going to be a feel, same kind of a thing, just like some of these guys are going to be. So there's that to that whole thing. And then one of the things I wrote in the chalkboard there, so I wrote 16 sprint teams. I wrote size there in the middle of the chalkboard. I wrote rest, stars. Let me do Anthony Edwards, and then I'll get into the lateness of this whole thing. Part of me thinks, okay, if Anthony Edwards scores 35 or 40 points, kind of like Şengün would score what he would score, then that's fine. And as long as none of the other Timberwolves get going, then the Warriors can win the series. And while that is true, I think Anthony Edwards went from, and I played you that video a little bit earlier, Anthony Edwards went from a guy who didn't really know how to work hard or anything like that to a guy who's potentially in very short order could be the face of the NBA. And one of the reasons he is he's kind of got and I'm not saying he's Michael Jordan, but what I am saying is he's kind of got that burn to him, that intensity to him, that I'm not going to lose to you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to blow you out, even to the better players. And if you look at his playoff history, he's beaten a lot of the best players in the league, not him personally, but his teams, which he was obviously on. So he rises to the challenge to the better teams and the better players. And in fact, this wasn't this year. I think this was last year, actually, that Edwards said this. No, is that the end of that one? Let me just pop this back up. There we go. Oh, come on, man. Anyway, whatever. He basically said in that clip that he wanted the Warriors. He wanted to play the Warriors. He wants to play the best. That's kind of what his MO is he does want to go up against the best. And he not only says it, he a lot of times backs it up. So the thing about Edwards, like a lot of superstars, is that if he gets going early in, let's say he scores in the first quarter tonight, I don't know, 16, 18 points. I'm not as overly concerned about that because if it's Anthony Edwards scoring 10 points, but Naz Reid goes off and Julius Randle is rolling and everything like that, that's when you should be concerned because Anthony Edwards can get his at just about any point he wants. That's just how good he is. He led the league in three-point makes. He's not the shooter that Steph Curry is, but he can get to the rim anytime he wants. Obviously, he's a dynamic athlete. He's great in the open court. He can do a lot of different things to hurt you. But also when he gets his teammates involved, the Timberwolves are better, like a lot of players, because in the back of his mind, with his confidence level, he knows that at any point he can get his. So if other guys get going around Anthony Edwards, that's when you get nervous. If Anthony Edwards is going off early tonight and I'm going, that's okay. Because the other guys are just kind of standing around and watching. A lot of times with secondary players, they need to get into a rhythm early. So the thing that will hurt the Warriors tonight, to me, is if Julius Randle has 10 or 12 in the first quarter, or Naz Reid hits his first 3 threes, or those kind of things. Gobert's a garbage man. Like if Gobert scores early, that doesn't mean he's going to be in any kind of a rhythm. If he's crashing the boards and getting a bunch of offensive rebounds and either putting them back or giving his teammates an opportunity, that's when you're scared about him. But in terms of the other players getting going, that's what scares you, because then you're thinking to yourself, well, it's really tough to stop Anthony Edwards. Now, having said that, last time out against the Lakers, and this is what's scary, they win the game. They clinch the series. Edwards goes 5 of 19 from the floor, 0 of 11 from 3, and they still win the game. So they're good enough, and they did it through offensive rebounds. They outscored the Lakers, and this is a big factor in the series. Now, they're not the offensive rebounding team that the Rockets were, not during the regular season, but they had 20 second-chance points against the Lakers in the clinching game. They outscored them 20-10, plus 10. I was told there was no math on this show, but occasionally there is. So they outscored the Lakers 20-10 on the offensive glass. Gobert had 9 by himself. So they're going to crash the boards like crazy in this series. That means, as I'm talking about, and they're going to do that twofold. Number one, I told you, they want to run up and down, and they want to make Rudy run, and they want to make Julius Randle run, they want to make Conley run. They're not going to just get out, but they'd like to get easy baskets against Minnesota, who's a good defensive team. And they want to make them run a little bit, especially because they have a big. But if they're out rebounding to that level and they're pushing everybody to the offensive glass, then you can't run out. You got to secure the rebound, then you can run out. So it becomes huge. Those things become huge in this series. So a lot of things going on. And then the last part is I read a stat this morning that Minnesota and how they outscored the Lakers in the fourth quarter, and that's like a veteran team. And the Warriors did the same thing to the Rockets. And so you've got two teams that are really good at finishing. So what's going to be fascinating about this series is 5 minutes left in the game. Game is close. Minnesota did a really nice job both in the regular season and in the playoffs in the sweep again, or not the sweep, the 4-1 series win over the Lakers late in the game. And that's Anthony Edwards, who is supremely confident. Different places to go. They can go. Edwards can slash. Edwards can shoot it from the outside. Julius Randle down on the block. He's got a mid-range game as well. So they've got a number of different places that they can go with the basketball late, and that's when you can beat teams. Even Mike Conley, he's a veteran guy. He can hit key shots. Naz Reid's a great shooter. They've got enough guys on this team that it's like, where are they going to go? Now, do they want to go with Edwards? It's kind of like the Warriors. Yeah, they want to go with Steph Curry if the game's on the line, but you can't ignore Jimmy Butler. And it's kind of the same thing with Minnesota. Yeah, they want to go with Anthony Edwards with the game on the line, but Julius Randle's underrated. And if you're going to leave him open or you're going to go to double Edwards, which you're not, it's difficult to, on the perimeter to be doing those kind of things, but they've got different ways they can go with the ball, and they've been really good late in games. So it could come down to those late game situations in Minnesota for a team that is on the younger side. I'm not saying they're extremely young, but again, Julius Randle's a veteran, Gobert's a veteran. They've got guys like that. Naz Reid, I think, is 25. Edwards is on the younger side, but they went to the conference finals last year, so they're not intimidated. They're not going to look across at the Warriors and say we're intimidated, because their number one guy is like, not only am I not intimidated, bring it on. I love chopping down giant trees. I mean, that's what Anthony Edwards has done through his career in the playoffs. He's done that, and he likes that challenge. So they're not only going to be not intimidated, they're going to think to themselves, we're going to win this series. Now, Vegas does have Minnesota as a slight favorite even this morning, so I'm sure you've been waiting. You just can't wait for my prediction about this thing, because I told you I would wait until Tuesday morning. So who wins? And this is where I want you to chime in on this whole thing. What do you think happens? Give me a key player. Give me what you think is going to happen as far as the series is concerned. And I throw homerism out of this whole thing. One sense, or one side of me, looks at the Minnesota roster. And again, they have Şengün's a really nice player, and Van Fleet's a really nice player, and Amen Thompson's going to be a good player in this league. But none of those players are at the peak of their powers. Van Fleet had a great series. I think he's past his prime. Şengün is only 22. He's going to be better. I mean, Thompson is 22 or 23. He's going to be better. Jalen Green had a horrible series. I think he's going to be better. That's a team on the rise with some good veteran players on it. I didn't mention Dillon Brooks on purpose. Minnesota's got a superstar player in his prime, which is Anthony Edwards. And when you're playing against a team like that, you just don't know what's going to happen. I think the Warriors are going to win this series in 6 games. But in order to do that, they've got to win one of the first 2. So tonight, I think, is a built-in loss. So they'll probably win, because that's what happens with me. The Timberwolves, rest versus rest, much rather have rest, especially if you're an older team. I think they get game 2 in Minnesota. I think that they uphold home court like they did against the Rockets, and they're up 3-1. I think they go back to Minnesota. I think they lose that game. Everybody gets jumping up and down, and it's just like the Rocket series. You're going to win this thing in 6? Are you going to go back to Minnesota and try to risk that thing in 7 and dance with the devil again in a game 7, which I wouldn't want to chance at twice in one playoff run, especially against a guy like Anthony Edwards. Edwards is going to go off in the series. The difference with an Edwards versus a Şengün as your best scorer and best player is they do have a lot of guys on the perimeter that they can throw at him. GP2, not sure if he's going to play in this game, but he would be absolutely massive. You're going to throw him at him. You're going to throw Jimmy at him. You're going to throw whatever. You might even throw Kuminga at him. You might, Moses Moody, I don't think he's going to stop a whole lot, but at least that's some extra fouls, and you can be physical with him as well. Just don't let him be overly efficient. I think that's the biggest thing with Anthony Edwards. Players who score 35 or 40, that's fine if you want to take 35 or 40 shots. I don't want to make him efficient. I don't want to send him to the free throw line 10 or 12 times tonight. I don't want him scoring 35 points on, 20 shots and 10 from the free throw line and, throwing 5 or 6 3-pointers. And, then he's a really efficient player scoring 35 on you versus a player that's having to jack up tons of stuff to, okay, you got your 35, but you weren't really efficient in doing that. And you also didn't get your other players involved by trying to take over the game and making it personal. And I want to beat the Warriors and I want to be the man. And sometimes Edwards can be that way. So hopefully that's the guy that they get. But I think the Warriors will win this thing in 6. I think they're the better team. The one caveat about this whole thing is it's every other game. It's every other day. Minnesota comes into this series very, very rested. And I know that, like I said, early in my career, if I had talked about that, the coaches who I would have had to interview before after those games would have slapped me and said, who cares who's tired? But the Warriors could be tonight. It could be a built-in loss. Now, I keep saying that, and Denver went into Oklahoma City last night. They were tired. They went on every other day. They played a game 7, and they ended up winning that game. And I think that series is all of a sudden like, whoa, Oklahoma City's already got to win a game. That'd be huge if the Warriors could do that in game 1. Coming off no rest, Minnesota's rested. They're in their place going, how did they just do that? Massive that they could pull that off tonight against Minnesota. So that's what's going on as far as the Timberwolves are concerned. What do you think in the series? I think the key comes down to really simplistic things, dealing with Minnesota's size, having Steph Curry be Steph Curry. It was a really rough series against the Rockets because of the way that Amen Thompson was able to guard him. It was difficult to get Steph the basketball. Minnesota's going to try those same things. I just think that I don't know that they have the personnel to pull those things off against Steph Curry and the Warriors. And then the other side of it is, as far as the Timberwolves are concerned, is that I just don't see they've always had trouble, the Timberwolves, keeping Rudy Gobert on the floor against the perimeter game of the Warriors, and I think that could be the case again. If they have to end up pulling him out, and again, then it's Naz Reid, and that's not any picnic either. But their ability to offensive rebound, to dominate on the offensive glass, those kind of things, I think are big things when Rudy Gobert is on the floor. I understand also that Draymond Green could redline a little bit. I should mention that in this series, he doesn't like Rudy Gobert. It goes back to Gobert winning Defensive Player of the Year awards that Draymond Green believed he should have won. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and Steph Curry said it about this, and I went into a bit of a diatribe yesterday about how I think Jimmy Butler has really helped calm down Draymond Green on the court. In other words, look at me. I'm an intense competitor, but I don't have to be demonstrative about it. I don't have to go after officials about it. I can still be I can run white hot and still keep my head about me. And I think Draymond Green has kind of looked over there and said, you know what? And he's never said this, but I mean, I think it's obvious that you can play the game and you can simmer and you can play hot, but you don't have to go after officials. You don't have to lose your mind. You don't have to get out of your game. You don't have to allow a Rudy Gobert or something to get into your head. In the past, he's done that. I think he's going to be a little bit different in this series because I think Jimmy has helped that. So that is part of this series of how much Draymond Green will redline and if he'll get out of things. So, and he's close to, right? He's close on the, flagrant or technical or whatever it is, as far as missing a game. So he's got to stay under control in this series. And that's absolutely a big part of this thing that I didn't even write on the chalkboard. So apologize about that. All right. Give me your thoughts. How many games? What do you think? Are the Timberwolves, is this where it ends? And having said what I just said, I can see the Timberwolves winning this series. They're a good team. And like I said, both of these teams are 16-team sprint teams versus 82-game teams. And I think that it's going to be a tough series. There's no doubt. But I do think actually the Rockets have more talent. They're inexperienced, but I think the Rockets have more talent. Doesn't mean that the Warriors will win the series. I just think the Rockets presented, especially defensively, more problems than what Minnesota will. But having said that, Minnesota was a top 10 defensive and offensive efficiency rating team. So they're a good team. All right, what do we got? Because I'll zip to the Giants real quick, and I have a great caboose pistol for you today that I want to give you. All right, let me move over to the Giants just really quickly. I watched this game last night. I know you'll be shocked about this, in a bar, and there was a couple of Cubs fans sitting by me, and so we were conversing about both of the teams. Chicago's got a great offense this year, the Cubs. They've had a couple of injuries in their starting rotation. Their bullpen hasn't been great. Their owners, the Ricketts, are really cheap. I don't know if they'll go after the needed. They probably need a starter and a reliever. I don't know if they'll go after either of those kind of things. But just in looking at them as potentially being a wild card team, now they're at the top of the Central Division right now. The Brewers are in there and the Reds possibly. Let me just pop this up really, really quickly. Let me just share my screen with you real quick because I want to show you the standings in the National League just very, very quickly, just in where the Cubs sit and where the Giants sit. So there you go. Dodgers, Mets, Cubs are the leaders, and then it's going to be tough. You got 3 teams right there. And look, it wouldn't surprise me. The Padres, Giants, and Phillies ended the season as the 3 wild card teams. I think the Phillies can play a lot better. Diamondbacks are there. I think they're legit. Reds, I don't know, even though they have talent. Milwaukee, I don't know how they do it every single year. They lose guys. They stay right there. St. Louis, I don't really believe in too much. Atlanta, I think, is going to be better than obviously what their record indicates, and I think they'll be in it. I think the Nationals, Marlins, Pirates, and, of course, Rockies, they don't even need to play anymore, even though I guess they're just going to play for money. But point is, there's enough teams in there that are going to make things tough on the Giants, and if they play the way they played last night, defensively, and I put Adames down there below Giants errors. The thing that happened last night, and the Cubs absolutely stole Pete Crow Armstrong from the Mets. If you remember, he was part of a trade in which he was a top 10 pick of the Mets out of Southern California, and they traded Javi Baez, did the Cubs, to get Pete Crow Armstrong. He doesn't re-sign with the Mets. The Tigers give him a deal, and they're regretting that every single day of their lives. Javi Baez is terrible. Javi Baez is terrible. But they got Pete Crow Armstrong out of it. And the guy's a great defensive center fielder. He's got a ton of speed. But this year he's got like 9 home runs. He's on pace for like 40. The guy can be an absolute superstar. What he did last night and what speed does for your team, and this is, like Tyler Fitzgerald could do this. He's not quite as fast. But why I always harped for years and years and years and years and years about Farhan when he was here, about making this an athletic team, the Giants, in a ballpark where it's not about home runs. It's about defensively, guarding triples alley and a vast outfield and stealing bases and making plays and manufacturing runs and all those kind of things. I always wanted the Giants to be more athletic. Well, you saw last night with Pete Crow Armstrong on Willie Adames' first error. He's going down the line. Adames commits the error. Pete Crow Armstrong speed. Pete Crow Armstrong is on first base. Adames has to rush a throw. He's safe there. Ball sails into right field. Matt Chapman has to rush a ball on Pete Crow Armstrong later in the game, and if he's a slower runner, he waits back for that hop, and then he throws Pete Crow Armstrong out, no problem. But Pete Crow Armstrong's fast; he has to rush it, can't handle it on a kind of a weird hop, and Pete Crow Armstrong gets on base. So the speed of Pete Crow Armstrong forced about 3 of those 4 errors last night. So that was part of it. I'm not saying that I'm not excusing those errors from Adames and Chapman, but the bottom line is they had a guy who had some speed, and he forced plays defensively that rushed throws in Adames' case, or made Chapman do something that he probably would have just laid back if it was a normal speed guy, and taking a nice big hop and then throwing the guy out. So the athleticism and sometimes lack thereof when it comes to the Giants, or just everybody in baseball, but that was a great move by the Cubs, and that guy forced 3 of the 4 errors last night. Now, having said that, Willie Adames committed 2 errors, and his bat, which, he hit a couple of home runs the other day, finally broke the seal in terms of hitting home runs at Oracle Park, and hopefully that'll get him, and I said this before he even hit these home runs, hopefully that'll get him kind of off of a mental track that even though he's a right-handed hitter, I thought Jorge Soler pressed last year, took him a minute to hit a home run at Oracle Park. He never settled into Oracle Park, and they traded him. They got rid of the money. That's not going to happen with Willie Adames. And I don't know if Willie Adames is taking some of his frustration of the at bat out to the field. I don't know what's going on in his head. He's far too good of a player to be the player that he's been so far for the Giants. I'm not saying that it was a bad signing. I'm not implying that, suggesting that, anything like that. But he's just got to be a lot better. And they're 22-14 at this point, and they're right in the thick of things, as you said. But you start looking at things like I said, the offense. And I'm not just last night was a 9-2 loss. Things happen. But the offense, for example, is, they've got to get 5 runs on the road. They got to get 4 runs at Oracle Park. That's the whole thing. You got to play 500 ball on the road. You got to win 2/3 of your games at home. That's kind of, there are certain kind of parameters that you look in your baseball team. And at the end of the year, you can go, okay, this is why they won baseball games. My point overall, though, is you're not going to play sloppy baseball and beat a team like that. So in the 6th inning, what was it? 5 runs they gave up, something like that in the 6th inning. And you're just watching this whole thing going, okay, you're giving him another out, and you're giving him another out, and you're giving him another out. And for an offensive team like the Cubs, you're not going to win a game like that. You're not going to go to Wrigley Field, commit those errors against this offensive team. Kyle Tucker's in that lineup. I just mentioned Pete Crow Armstrong just because, but Ian Happ hit a home run last night. They got a bunch of bats in that lineup. And if you give them extra routes, I mean, this is Captain Obvious here, then they're going to beat you. But those are the better teams that you're going up against. And you might have to fight in the wild card against the Cubs. Now, right now, they look really good, and they're leading their division, but they've got injuries. 2 of their starters are out. They've got a guy named Cade Horton, who's one of the top pitching prospects in the league, and they may bring him up, but they've got to figure some things out. And their management, given that even though it's a large market team, they don't act like a large market team. The Ricketts are cheap. They've got they've got marquee, they've got their own channel, they've got all these different things that they've done, but they don't care. I tell you about owners who want to win, and then owners who just want to own the team and treat it like a business. The Ricketts treat the Cubs like a business. And even though they could be up there spending the type of money the teams at the top of the top spend, they have the revenue of teams like the Dodgers. They have that kind of revenue, or close. They've got revenue, not maybe like the Yankees or the Mets or something like that, but they can be in that mix, but they just choose not to be. They're kind of like the Giants in that way, but they've got a good offensive team, but it doesn't mean that they're going to win that division. So these become important games because maybe you're going to fight with the Cubs for the wild card. So last night was a frustrating game because what the Giants have a formula that they win with. And I talked about it at the beginning of the season when they were scoring a bunch of runs, and I'm like, this isn't really the formula. The formula is the starting pitching goes 5 or 6. The bullpen is a hammer, lights out bullpen. You play really good defense behind that pitching staff, and you have timely hitting. And like I said, you score 4 at home. That's the magic number. And you score 5 on the road. That's a lot of runs, but the ballpark is usually better, obviously, than it is at Oracle Park. So Willy Adames, I'm not going to say it's a bad signing, but he's off to a slow start and needs to turn it around. And then tonight's a really big start. Justin Verlander has been good enough to win at least 2 games for the Giants this year, and he hasn't gotten the help. Last night, oh, by the way, I have to, before we leave last night, if I talk a guy up and then he falls on his face, then I have to admit it. Hayden Birdsong, probably his worst outing yesterday. Couldn't throw strikes. Just didn't look comfortable at all. Now, maybe part of that is, and I spoke with Hayden Birdsong. It was a really fun conversation last year when he first came up, and we were at I'm blanking on the bar that's outside of Oracle Park, but Pop and I had him at had him on the show. And now I'm trying to think of the bar, and it's not coming to me. But anyway, beside the point. And before he came on the air, I was talking to him because my folks are from Chicago, and my dad was a Cubs fan. And so I'm asking about, because where he grew up is kind of in the middle. It's kind of like Cardinals or White Sox or Cubs territory, and he grew up a Cubs fan. So maybe, just maybe, and he was in Illinois, so maybe, just maybe, he was pressing too hard. Maybe he had a lot of people in the crowd, whatever the case may be. I'm not making an excuse for the kid. I'm just trying to think, why he was off last night. He just was off, and those things are going to happen. And so I've championed him as a starter in the rotation. Landon Root wasn't terrible last night, but he wasn't great. I still think that they're wasting the talents of Birdsong in the bullpen, which is something he hasn't really done. He's still got something like a 1.47 ERA, but he just wasn't on last night. They bring he doesn't get it done against the Cubs. And so, yeah, it's a problem. There's no doubt about it. So he wasn't good last night. So I've got to admit that, because I'm sitting there pounding the table constantly. Birdsong. And then if he doesn't pitch well, I got to admit it. But it doesn't mean that I don't think he still should be bound for the rotation right friggin' now. But anyway, this is a big, again, I'm not going to say it's a big start for Verlander, but he's pitched well. So I think this is a big series. I think, again, you're playing the Cubs, who could be a wild card team. Maybe they're going to win that division, but they have a really good offense. So I want to see Justin Verlander again tonight against the Cubs. So there's that, even though I don't know how much of that I'll be watching with the Warriors tonight. So I'll try to keep one eye on both so that you and I can discuss. All right, I got to play this. Let me give me a sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistol, and I'll get to the chat line and say hello to everybody again. I got to play this for you. Let me see. Move this down, because I got to get to the sweet, clean, family-friendly Caboose pistol open. I got a great Caboose pistol for you today. I'm not going to lie to you. Really, really good. There we are. Let's do it. Caboose time.
John Lund Unleashed presents the Caboose pistol.
Wedged in the crack of her buttocks.
Somehow, someway, Lundo thinks this is the best way to leave a final impression on you for the day.
The old Caboose pistol, everybody has one.
Did you say Caboose?
I know some women who could hide a machine gun in there.
Yeah.
Leave me out of this, you weirdo. Here's John.
I do not know any women who could put a machine gun in there. I was from WGN Channel 9 back in the day. All right, Caboose pistol time. So I haven't given you a true weird caboose in a long time. Not even a long time, maybe a week. Something like that. But this is what the Caboose is all about if you're new here. And by the way, thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching on John Lund Unleashed. Thank you for watching on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube, John Lund on X at John Lund Radio. And make sure that you join us on the Bay Area Sports Collective. Please give us a like and subscribe and keep those alerts on as well at John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. All right. So here's the backdrop on this one. Eugene, Oregon, beautiful city in Oregon. Covered many football games there. University of Oregon, Oregon Ducks. Guy is in a parking lot, and he is waving what police officers think. I think it's a rifle or something like that, or a shotgun, something like that. But here's the story from Eugene.
Threatening people with what later was determined to be a bong that was shaped like a rifle. Just before 1 p.m., Eugene police sent out an alert asking people to avoid the area near a shopping center at the intersection of Royal and North Danabo Avenues. Police say 47-year-old Jacob Don Daniels was reported to be in the Bi-Mart parking lot making those threats. EPD says Daniels reached for the bong and officers used a sponge round to stop him. He was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct.
Think about so first of all, the guy's waving around a bong that looks like a shotgun, and give those officers credit because I don't know if there's any police officers listening. I know Mark's a police officer. I don't know if Mark is in the chat today or was a police officer, but they hit him with the non-lethal, I guess you said the sponges or whatever like that. But a lot of cops would have been like, you got a rifle? Boom, nailing you. I don't know if the guy had a death wish or what, but he's just rolling around with it. I've never seen a bong that looked like a rifle, but apparently the guy was rolling around with it, and they didn't shoot him with lethal weapons. I don't know if they knew that it wasn't a rifle or what the case may be, but a guy's rolling with a rifle and swinging it around. Most cops are like, bye, we're not messing with that. And I wouldn't blame them in that case. But no, they used non-lethal sponges on the guy, and then they later find out that he was ripping around with a bong. And speaking of bong, I don't know if you saw this yesterday. I don't know that it relates, but it just popped into my head because we were talking about it. Did you see that they I think TMZ and a bunch of different people then places ran with it. And Justin Verlander, my God, Justin Bieber, I think he's in another country, and he was ripping off a bong, and people made a big deal of it. And it's like, weed's legal now. I mean, it's like saying, that guy was drinking a beer or a whiskey shot or a cocktail or whatever. And it was like, you can smoke weed now. Like, it's not a big deal. And they're like, oh my God, we're so concerned about Justin Bieber and his well-being. And it's like, so are you concerned about Snoop Dogg? Like, he smokes out and admits it 10 times a day. I've never seen Snoop Dogg on any kind of a show or whatever he's promoting, or whatever the case may be, not high. But nobody's worried about him. But they have this picture of or video of Justin Bieber ripping off a big bong hit. And it's because Verlander's pitching today. It's in my mind. And I'm like, it's legal. It's legal. It's fine. I mean, I don't know. It just struck me as weird. It's just that was the headline guy in TMZ. Justin Bieber, takes a big bong hit. It's like, yeah. And I was like, if you're having a cocktail, so-and-so's having a beer or a cocktail or anything like that. I'm like, whatever. Anyway, guy with a bong that looks like a rifle. I know this. We had a thing in college, and this just wasn't me. So we called it the doobie wagon, and right down the hill from the fraternity house, and I would leave my windows open, and I would be on the ground floor. So unless it was winter, you'd have your windows open, you'd have a screen, you wanted to let the air in there, and I'd have an alarm set. I don't know. I'd have my first class at 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever it was. Not too early. Was never an early class guy. So I would wake up many days to the sounds of hacking of people smoking weed. And you couldn't do it on the fraternity grounds. And so you had to go down this hill, and we had these trees that through the years, the fraternity brothers had cleared out this little place, but there were trees over them. So you couldn't really see it. And they had made a path down to it. And then there was a big tree stump there. And then there was a bunch of chairs around it. And we called it the doobie wagon, and people would smoke down there. That's just where they would smoke weed. And there were bongs sitting down there and all sorts of paraphernalia and all that kind of stuff. And every morning I would wake up around 8 o'clock, and I'd look out my window, and you'd see these same guys, 4 or 5 guys, walk up from the doobie wagon, hacking, coughing, and you could smell it and all that kind of stuff. And that's how they went to school. Now, a couple of those guys were one of my really good friends. His name was Chris. He was from Hawaii, and that's how he just, he was a kid, but since he was 18, that's how he just started his day. That's what I do. It makes me normal. It's kind of like Seth Rogen. Like, that's what makes me normal. And that's what he did. And I tried it a couple of times. There was just no way I could do it. Like, I'd go into class and be, so that was just never me. So I don't know why that came with the bong story. It's just, I was talking about bongs that look like a rifle and all those kind of things. And I just remember they had this big, floor bong down there at that thing, and people would take rips off it, and I could never. Like I said, my lungs could never do that, but they just like blow it right out. It was like, how did you just do that? And it kind of reminded me of the giant bong that they showed Justin Bieber with. And like, oh my God, I'm concerned about Justin Bieber. It's like, why? Justin Bieber, like, it's legal. It's legal to have, smoke weed. So anyway, there's my weed story. Speaking of feeling better, you see how I did that? Dr. Riopel right there, and the fine sponsor of the show, Dr. Riopel and Riopel Sports Medicine. If you click on that right there, the logo right there for Dr. Riopel, you can feel better. Like, for example, my wife does. I told you this. We were in Vegas about 2 weeks ago. So click on that QR code right there. It'll take you right to the website, Riopel Sports Medicine. But we were walking around Vegas, and she does the stem cell. And so I've told you about her shoulder. I told you about all these contraptions we have. We have literally in our garage a freezer that we use for all of her things that she puts on her shoulders and elbows and all these different things where she has ailments, and she doesn't have to do that near as much anymore. And then we were walking around Vegas, and he did the stem cell treatment on her foot about a month ago. And she's like, if it wasn't, she told me this while we were walking around in Vegas, I promise you, if it wasn't for Dr. Riopel, we couldn't be doing this. She just couldn't do it. She couldn't walk around Vegas the way that we were walking around Vegas. And she said, Dr. Riopel is doing this. It's unbelievable. So she swears by stem cell, shoulder, elbow, her foot. If you want to get some more information or make an appointment, Dr. Riopel is the guy. He did Bartolo Colon's stem cell. So absolutely great stuff. He does an amazing job. He is a doctor, Dr. Riopel after all. And Riopel Sports Medicine, click on that QR code right there. Just go to Google and you can check it out. Riopel, they're in San Ramon. Dr. Jeffrey Riopel, they're in San Ramon. I'm telling you, if you're in the East Bay, that's a no-brainer. And if you're thinking to yourself, am I going to go to the East Bay? Absolutely. He is absolutely the best with stem cell. He's tremendous. We've been going to Dr. Riopel for years. And so when we started the podcast and the YouTube show, we're like, oh, we got to get him involved in everything. He's that good. We wanted to spread the word to everybody. So click on that QR code for Dr. Riopel. If you're interested in stem cell, which you should be, if you've got any kind of pain, he can help you. And then the other day, I update on, of course, low T and low testosterone, which I've been doing for years and years and years. But about, 2 years, I started doing it with Dr. Riopel. And all they do is a simple blood test. And then they do a quick procedure and you're good to go. And they don't make it, it's not crazy or anything like that. It's like, okay, this is the amount you're low. He hits you up with that and you're good to go for about 4 months. So click on it right there. If you want to feel better, if you want to feel like yourself, if you want to have more energy, all the different things, lose weight, speeds up your metabolism. It just makes you like you were. So Dr. Riopel does a great job with low T, low testosterone, no weekly shots, anything like that. I swear by it. It's absolutely great stuff. So click on the QR code right there with Dr. Riopel, Dr. Jeffrey Riopel, and Riopel Sports Medicine. They're right there in San Ramon. And whether it be low T, whether it be stem cell, any other procedures, if you click on that QR code, it'll take you right to the website at Dr. Riopel, and they do tons of procedures, and you're going to feel better regardless of what you do. You can look better, you can feel better. Check out my good friend, Dr. Jeffrey Riopel, and tell him I sent you over. He is the best. Anything else we have to accomplish today? Let me double check that I'm not missing anything today. Went through everything today. Episode 134, one last Dillon Brooks. Draymond Green did not like the fact that he would not shake his hand. We did that. Minnesota Golden State history, not on the court. This is the first time that they are actually meeting, but from Steph Curry and Minnesota taking those 2-point guards ahead of him. To thank you very much for Andrew Wiggins, who then they traded for Jimmy Butler. And by the way, thank you for the number 7 pick, which they took Jonathan Kuminga, who they're going to trade for a big in this offseason. Minnesota and the Warriors. But as not so much playoffs, but definitely as far as off the court kind of things. We previewed the series. It's going to be tough to win tonight. This might be a built-in loss, but I think the Warriors are going to win the series. It's going to be tough, no doubt about it. And I went through everything. Rest is going to be a big thing. The size, the 2 superstars, all those kind of things. Who wins? Like I said, I think the Warriors in 6, but it's going to be tough. Giants Airs, you're not going to beat good teams playing that kind of defense. Adamas, after that slow start, he's got to get rolling. The caboose pistol, the bong shaped like a rifle, and random things always happen throughout the show, and I thank you for that. Please make sure that you subscribe to John Lund Unleashed on YouTube and the Bay Area Sports Collective. Please give us that thumbs up. That helps the algorithm help us. Thank you for watching on X today at John Lund Radio. Remember, if you have any comments, thoughts, you don't have to agree with the show. Any comments, questions, thoughts, anything about the show, please put them right here, right underneath the broadcast here in the comments. Or if you want to do it a little bit later, you can do it on X as well at John Lund Radio. I'm always checking out that platform. Thanks for watching on Twitch today. Bay Area Sports Collective, Polly Mack and Creative Tony are going to be on a little bit later. Tom Tolbert's going to be on. Tom will be doing a post-game show tonight as well. After the game, I will later. I'm not sure if Tommy's feeling better or not. In fact, let me look at my text, because often people will say, hey, that's how people get a hold of me, you know. Have not seen anything there. Okay. Don't know. But I know Tommy, whether he be in Minnesota or here in the Bay Area, he will have a post-game show tonight as well. And so you want to make sure that you are subscribed to the Bay Area Sports Collective. Went through the Giants a little bit. Again, Adamas, Caboose, random things. That is a Tuesday edition of the show. We have one more star that I missed. I do not want to miss the stars. We hit up. Here is our good friend, JJ Rader. Sorry, I'm so late on this. You got to name your shed the Doobie Wagon. Oh, that's a great call. That is actually a great call, JJ Rader. And thank you very much. By the way, JJ, talked to my son last night. Oh, my God. I've never seen a guy more excited for a draft pick than he is for Genty. Yeah, Doobie Wagon. I didn't name the Doobie Wagon, and thank you very much, JJ Rader. Remember, with a super, you can always get and guarantee that you will get your thoughts on the show. Yeah, I didn't come up with that name. I wish I could, I could take credit for it. And lots of times I'll just steal things, and I do give credit to people. But yeah, I wish I could come up with credit for the Doobie Wagon. It's an amazing, amazing name. But I just remember laying in bed sometimes, and you just hear, because like I said, I'd have the window open, especially in the spring and the summer, and you just hear, and I'm like, oh my God, that was like my alarm clock. And I would look over and I'm like, it's like 7 o'clock. I got to get up. Because these guys were like smoking weed to start their day. And like I said, by the time I'd get in the shower, get dressed, I'd look out the window and here they are, coming up the hill. I was like, I cannot do that. And they would, they'd see me looking through. They'd be like, Lund, you got to come down here, man. And I'm like, dude, if I smoke weed, I'm going to walk right back into this room. And, I had one of those mini fridges, like, you have a turning room. I'd have, like a mini fridge, and then it'd have a bunch of junk food on it. I had a TV in my room and all that. And all I would do is I'd walk back up because I'd done it before. And I'm like, hell with class. And I'd, eat nacho cheese Doritos and watch soap operas. I was like, I'm not doing that. Can't do that. Killing me. All right. Everybody have a great Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means a ton to me. Thank you so much. Remember, hit me up. Make sure that you have those alerts on, because you never know when we're going to jump back on. We jump on for breaking news, post-game shows, all those kind of things. So we'll be back later on today, and I will be back in the home studio tomorrow with everything working tomorrow from the studio at 8 a.m. sharp for the Hump Day edition of the show. Everybody have a great day. Make sure that you're subscribed, you give us those likes, and you turn those alerts on John Lund Unleashed on YouTube. Have a great rest of your
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!